People think leaving is a single moment, a slammed door, a suitcase, a final word thrown like a match into a dry room. But for me, leaving was slow. Careful, meticulous. It started the night I clicked submit on my application to nursing school. Eric was sitting on the couch, feeding our baby oatmeal while the toddler ran circles with a superhero cape made from an old t-shirt. The apartment smelled like laundry detergent and macaroni. Ordinary. Sweet. But I remember looking at him, at that quiet, loving, predictable man, and thinking, this isn't forever. Not for me. Not because he was cruel. He wasn't. Eric was good, solid, kind in the ways that made everyone adore him and no one fear losing him. And maybe that was the problem. There was no fire, no risk, no wildness. Only the same four walls, the same grocery list, the same tired love that had stopped asking questions. I had just turned 30, and the weight of motherhood felt more like a pair of locked wrists than a badge of grace. So when the acceptance email came through, I smiled, but not just because I was proud. It was because I saw it. A map. A countdown. A way out. Nursing school was intense, but it gave me a double life. By day, I packed lunches, wiped faces, scheduled playdates. By night, I memorized anatomy and wrote case reports. In between, I started creating quiet exits. A second bank account, small deposits from my scholarship fund, and later weekend babysitting gigs. A note file on my phone labeled meal prep that was really a folder of apartment listings and state-by-state custody laws. I wasn't cruel, I wasn't cheating, I wasn't even angry. I just knew I wouldn't stay. Eric, bless him, supported everything. He made flashcards with me, took the kids on walks so I could study, told everyone at his job how proud he was that I was finally doing something for herself. And I let him, because in his version of the story I was building a better future with him. In mine, I was building one without him. I know how that sounds. Deceptive, calculated, cold. But I need you to understand. I didn't hate Eric. I just didn't see a version of my future that still included him as my partner. He was the person who carried me through the trenches of early motherhood. But I never signed up for that to be the whole story. And part of me believed, naively, that leaving cleanly, with money saved, no courtroom drama, and a polite co-parenting agreement, was actually a kindness. That waiting until after I graduated, until I had my own job, until I could support myself and the kids, that was respectful. That's the lie we tell ourselves when we plan exits in silence. We say we're being noble, but we're really just afraid of being held accountable for choosing ourselves too early. The timeline was set. I had 12 months left in the program. My rental deposit fund was growing. The apartment I wanted was only a block from the boys' school. I even had a spreadsheet for furniture costs, new bedding, internet providers. Everything was moving exactly as planned. And Eric? He kept showing up. Hands full of groceries, hugs for the boys, jokes that still made me laugh. Sometimes, in those quiet evenings when we'd collapse on the couch after putting the kids to bed, I wondered if I was a monster. Then I'd remember how small I used to feel, how often I said yes when I meant no, how long I'd spent trying to be grateful enough to make peace with a life I didn't choose, only fell into. So I told myself again, you're not leaving because you're ungrateful. You're leaving because you finally know what you want. And what I wanted was almost here. Just one more year and I'd be free. I didn't keep a journal. That would have been too obvious, too physical, too easy to find. Instead, I kept everything hidden in a folder on my phone titled ICU Rotations. Fitting, really, since the entire plan was about resuscitating my own life. Inside that folder were apartment listings sorted by proximity to pediatric clinics, screenshots of secondhand furniture, a projected grocery budget, and a final checklist labeled D-Day, August 17th. Move car the night before. Tell him the morning after the license clears. No explanation, just peace. It read like a logistics memo. Clean, practical, painless. In my mind, that's how it would be. Because I wouldn't be leaving him out of anger. There wouldn't be screaming or crying or accusations, just a thank you and a goodbye. It felt almost romantic in a detached kind of way. Every Sunday evening, I reviewed the plan like a ritual. While Eric bathed the boys, I'd sit in the back porch with my tea, headphones in, pretending to listen to lectures while fine-tuning the exit route. That's what I was doing that night when Megan called. She was the only person who knew. My best friend since undergrad. She didn't judge. She just listened, and maybe even admired how I'd reclaimed the narrative, as she liked to put it. I answered, placed my phone face down beside me, and leaned back in the chair. 3 more months, I whispered like a secret. Megan laughed. I swear you're like a spy. You even gave me fake contacts so no one links us. I smiled. I just don't want him catching on. He still thinks I'm applying for the night shift at the city hospital, but it's really 2 towns over, near my new apartment. You're cold, she said, half impressed. No, I said, I'm efficient. There's a difference. There was a pause. Then she asked, and you're still planning to just tell him that morning? Yeah, I said, exhaling. After the lease is signed, after I've moved half the stuff out the night before while he's at work, that way he can't stop me, or plead, or guilt me. And the boys? I'll tell them gradually. Say mommy has her own place now, no court, no fighting, just 2 homes. That's what all the books say is best, right? It all made sense in my head. So much sense that I didn't even notice the faint reflection on the glass door behind me, didn't hear the creak of Eric's work boots stepping onto the kitchen tile, didn't realize I was no longer alone on that porch. Until I turned and saw him standing there. He wasn't angry. That was the worst part. He didn't yell, he didn't cry. He just looked at me, like he'd stepped into a movie he wasn't cast in. His face was blank, but his eyes were full of something I didn't have a name for. Disbelief? Grief? Something deeper. Something final. I gave you everything, he said softly. Everything I had. I opened my mouth. To explain? To lie? To pivot? I don't even know what would have come out, because he raised his hand, not to silence me, but as if to say, don't even try. Then he turned, walked back inside, closed the door. That night, we didn't speak. He slept on the couch. I lay awake in our bed, staring at the ceiling, heart hammering, wondering if I had just destroyed the one thing I thought I could walk away from cleanly. The next morning, he didn't make coffee. Didn't kiss the boys goodbye. Didn't look at me. Just grabbed his keys and left. And for the first time since I began planning this escape, I felt something unfamiliar settle over me. Not guilt, not regret, something worse, uncertainty. Because for the first time, I wasn't steering the ship anymore. He knew, and I had no idea what he would do next. I always thought the end of a marriage would be loud, that there'd be accusations, tears, raised voices echoing through narrow hallways. That someone would slam a door, someone else would beg, and somewhere between, a dramatic line would be shouted like a movie script. How could you? But when Eric found out, it wasn't loud at all. It was hollow. The kind of quiet that wraps around you like fog, where you don't even realize you're lost until it's too late to see what you're walking into. He didn't confront me the next day. Or the day after that. He simply adjusted. He moved his toothbrush to the downstairs bathroom, stopped sleeping in our bed, stopped asking what time I'd be home, stopped texting me pictures of the boys during the day. And I noticed, not just the silence, but the small, surgical withdrawals. His favorite hoodie disappeared from the closet. The password to our shared Google Calendar suddenly didn't work. He unsubscribed from our joint grocery delivery. I didn't say anything at first. I figured he was shocked. Processing. But by the end of the week, when he still hadn't uttered a single word about the conversation he overheard, I started to realize something terrifying. He wasn't waiting to talk. He was already leaving. Just like I had planned to do to him. But cleaner. Colder. Without the performance. On Friday, a plain manila envelope appeared on the kitchen counter. My name written on it in Eric's neat block letters. Inside was a notarized custody agreement. Joint physical 50-50 split. A proposed asset division spreadsheet, no alimony requested, a list of items he planned to take when he moved out, and a final line written in pen, I'm not gonna fight you, but I'm not going to stay either. I'll always show up for the boys, but we're done. I stood there for 10 minutes holding that note like it might bite me. This wasn't supposed to happen yet. Not like this. Not by his hand. I had control. I had a plan. I had an exit script. Soft, humane, strategic. But now it was his story, and I was the one being left behind. That night, I texted Megan. He knows. He heard everything. He's gone. Not physically, but emotionally. He left without ever leaving. I watched the typing bubble blink for 30 seconds before it vanished. Then the message came. Lauren, I love you, but I can't be in the middle of this. followed by "you can no longer send messages to this user." And just like that, the only person who knew my side, who had listened, affirmed, cheered even, ghosted me. Because suddenly it wasn't theory anymore. It wasn't just whispers about freedom and selfhood. It was a husband sleeping on the couch, a best friend cutting ties, and 2 children asking why daddy didn't say goodnight anymore. The following week, Eric stopped wearing his wedding ring. He didn't hide it, just left it on the kitchen windowsill next to the soap dispenser. I saw it every morning as I washed the dishes. It glinted in the sunlight like a quiet monument. A reminder, not of love, but of the choices we make when we think we can outsmart heartbreak. People warned me once, if you build an exit without honesty, don't be surprised when someone takes it before you. I thought I was different. I thought I was the one holding the compass. But now I was just watching him walk. Not with bitterness, not with rage, but with a clarity I never gave him the dignity of having. And that hurt more than any fight ever could. I moved out on a Thursday morning. No movers, no dramatic scenes, just me, a borrowed SUV, 2 large bins of folded clothes, a secondhand dresser I found on Craigslist, and a twin mattress rolled up and tied with rope. The apartment I rented was 2 towns over, 620 square feet, carpet stains in the corners, and a front door that stuck if you didn't shove your hip into it just right. But it was mine. I told myself that over and over. It's mine. It's quiet. It's freedom. But the silence didn't feel like freedom. It felt like a punishment no one had to hand out. I served it to myself. The boys stayed with me 3 nights a week at first. I tried to make the place feel warm for them. Paper stars on the ceiling, camping nights on the floor, pancakes for dinner. They didn't complain. They didn't cry. But they looked at me with that cautious curiosity kids have when the world shifts and no one explains the why. "Why do we have to go back and forth now, Mommy?" My youngest asked once, mid-bite of a grilled cheese. I swallowed hard, smiled too quickly. "Because Mommy and Daddy both love you and we each have our own space to show it." He nodded, but something in his eyes told me he knew the grown-up answer I wouldn't say out loud. My job wasn't what I expected either. The ICU program I aimed for turned me down. Too many applicants, not enough experience. So I took a position at a local outpatient clinic. Less hours, less pay, less prestige. Enough to cover rent, enough to keep the lights on, but not enough to feel like all of this was worth it. And the work itself? It didn't thrill me. It drained me. I treated coughs, ran paperwork, took blood pressure from people who barely looked up from their phones. No one called me exceptional. No one said you're going places. I just existed. Quiet, functional, forgettable. The worst part, though, wasn't the job, wasn't the bills. Wasn't even the fact that my Instagram went from birthday cakes and couple selfies to complete silence. It was the way people looked at me now, or didn't. Eric never said a bad word about me, not to friends, not online, not even to his family. But silence spreads differently when it's heavy. Neighbors who used to wave suddenly closed their blinds a little faster. My mother called less. My sister stopped sending memes. Even coworkers, the ones who used to say, "You're such an inspiration juggling school and family," now just nodded politely and changed the subject. No one said I was wrong, but no one said I was right, either. I was living in the space in between, that awkward purgatory reserved for women who leave without scandal, but also without permission. One night, I scrolled through Eric's Facebook page. Not because I missed him. Not like that. I just wanted to see what life looked like in the world I used to occupy. He had posted a photo from the park, the boys in matching hoodies, leaves stuck in their hair, huge smiles across their faces. Eric stood behind them, a paper cup of coffee in hand, looking thinner but sharper, clean-shaven, clear-eyed. Someone commented, "You're glowing, man." He replied, "It's been a hard season, but I'm figuring out who I am again." I stared at that line for a long time. Who I am again. As if I had taken that from him. As if I hadn't just escaped, but erased. In the old apartment, we used to argue sometimes about laundry, money, discipline, but even in the tension, there was presence. Now, in my apartment, there was nothing but quiet. The kind that echoes off empty shelves. The kind that makes the sound of your own fork scraping a plate feel deafening. One night, I sat at the table long after dinner, staring at the wall where I had meant to hang photos. I realized I didn't have any. Not new ones. not ones where I was proud of the woman in them. And that's when it hit me. I had left to find myself, but I never stopped to ask if I'd like who I became once I got there. Spring arrived quietly. The city thawed. Trees along my block started pushing out fragile green tips. Even the breeze felt lighter, like everything was moving on without asking me first. Eric never said anything cruel. He honored every schedule. Picked the boys up on time, dropped them off with hugs with their hair brushed and lunch boxes packed better than I ever managed. He wasn't cold. He was precise. And, in a way, that hurt more. He had stopped looking at me like someone he knew. I had become a transaction, logistical, efficient, polite, just like I had once imagined doing to him. I started hearing things from mutual friends, from old coworkers. "Eric's doing great, huh? He looks so grounded now. Have you met her yet?" I didn't ask who her was. I didn't have to. I saw it myself a few weeks later. The boys had a school recital. It was Eric's night to have them, but I came anyway. I wasn't going to miss it. They were standing near the entrance when I arrived. Eric in a soft blue shirt I hadn't seen before, the boys in matching slacks and clip-on ties, and next to him, a woman, mid-30s, tall, simple makeup, kind eyes. She laughed at something one of the boys said and placed a gentle hand on Eric's arm in a way that wasn't romantic, just familiar, like she belonged there. She didn't try to outshine, didn't glance at me like a warning, didn't even seem to know I was watching. But I saw something between them that knocked the breath out of me. No performance, no pretending. Just quiet, mutual understanding. After the recital, I helped the boys into their jackets. Eric approached. "Thanks for coming," he said, calm as always. I nodded. They were amazing. He smiled, and for the first time in months I saw it, a flicker of the man I used to know. Or maybe the man I never really saw clearly. "They're lucky to have you," I added before I could stop myself. Eric paused. "We're both doing the best we can." He didn't say it out of pity. He said it like a truth that didn't need defending. The woman walked up behind him. She didn't touch him this time, just stood nearby, holding a small bouquet the boys had picked. Eric gestured. "Lauren, this is Claire, a friend of mine." Claire smiled. "Hi, Lauren. The boys talk about you all the time." It was so sincere I didn't know what to do with it. I muttered something, maybe "nice to meet you," maybe nothing, and turned to leave before my eyes betrayed me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was jealous, but because I realized something far worse. Claire wasn't a replacement. She wasn't what Eric got after me. She was the kind of person he probably always needed, someone who met him where he was, not where she planned to outgrow, and that shook me. Because it meant Eric hadn't been the problem. It meant I had built a map to escape a place that was never a trap. It meant I had abandoned something that still had breath in it. Not because it was dead, but because I didn't know how to love something that didn't bend to my timeline. I used to think self-worth meant never settling. Now I realize it also means telling the truth before you're ready. It means choosing courage over control. It means saying I'm not happy before you say I'm leaving. And I didn't do that. I chose strategy over honesty, and in doing so, I lost more than a marriage. I lost my place in a family that still had room for me. If only I had stayed and spoken. A few weeks later, the boys came home with drawings. One showed Mom's apartment, colorful, cluttered, with hearts in the windows. The other showed Dad's house, clean, organized, with Claire in the garden planting flowers. I asked gently, "Do you like being at Daddy's?" My youngest said, "Yeah, Claire makes pancakes with chocolate chips." Then he looked at me and added, "But yours are better, Mommy." It wasn't meant to comfort me. It just was. And in that moment, I understood the only truth that mattered. They didn't need me to be perfect. They just needed me to be present, not strategic, not composed, not silently slipping away behind folders and calendars. Just here. It hit me on a Thursday night. Not with drama, not in tears, just quietly as I stood in the dim bathroom of my tiny apartment brushing my teeth, catching my own reflection in the mirror. For the first time in a long time, I really looked. My face was thinner. Not in a glowing, confident way, but in the kind of way stress hollows a person out. There were lines where laughter used to be. My eyes looked tired. Not from sleepless nights. I had plenty of those when the boys were babies. But from carrying too much that I thought I could balance forever. I turned off the faucet, leaned closer. and whispered out loud to no one but myself, "You got what you wanted." And it was true. I had freedom, I had independence, I had space, my own schedule, my own bed. I had every ingredient I once thought spelled relief. And yet standing there in the reflection, I saw it plainly. I was lonelier now than I had ever been in my entire life. There's no medal for being the one who walks away first, no trophy for planning your exit so neatly that the wounds never show until they do. And what no one tells you about starting over is that you don't get to choose which pieces come with you. You pack the guilt, the shame, the missed moments, and you carry them, whether you want to or not. Eric never punished me. But he no longer saw me. And that emptiness, was a kind of consequence no court could deliver. I sat down that night and wrote a letter, not to ask for forgiveness, not to rekindle anything, just to say the things I should have said when I still had the right. I don't know if you'll read this, or if you'll believe any of it, but I need to say it, because silence has never done either of us any good. I planned to leave you before I was honest with you, and that is something I will always regret. Not because I wanted to stay, but because you deserved the truth while it still mattered. You were never cruel, you were never small, you were simply steady, and I confused that for complacency. That was my failure, not yours. I thought being smart about ending things made me stronger. But now I see, strength would have been saying it to your face before I said it to anyone else. You showed me, even in the way you left, what dignity looks like. You never raised your voice. You never shamed me. You just stepped aside and let me live the life I chose, and you did it with a grace I didn't deserve. Thank you for being the kind of father who never made our children pick sides. For building them a home out of peace instead of bitterness. For continuing to show up when I barely knew how to stay still. I will never ask you to understand why I did what I did. I only hope one day you'll believe that I've learned from it. Not because I want anything from you, but because I finally see myself clearly, and I want to be better for the woman in that mirror. Take care, Lauren, I didn't mail it. I folded the paper, tucked it into a drawer, and left it there. Some truths don't need an audience. Some accountability belongs to us, and us alone. Spring turned to summer. The boys adjusted better than I expected. Kids do that. They adapt to new rhythms faster than the adults who create the chaos. Eric continued showing up. Consistent, calm, present. Claire stayed but never took my place. She didn't need to. The version of Eric she was building something with wasn't the same one I left behind. He was lighter now. Not because he'd moved on from me, but because he no longer had to carry the weight of my indecision. And me? I started running. Not metaphorically, literally. Just 10 minutes at a time, around the small park 2 blocks from my apartment. Breathless, sweaty, no fancy gear. Just movement. Forward. No backward glances. It was the first time I did something without a plan, and I liked it. Because maybe that's the final lesson in all this. You can map your escape, rehearse your freedom, build your future down to the color of the new couch. But if you build it all on secrets, you'll end up living in a house of silence. I don't know what love looks like for me from here. I don't know when or if I'll ever be ready again. But I do know this. Next time, I'll choose honesty over control. Next time, I'll ask the hard questions before I write the easy exits. Next time, I'll walk forward, not away, because the mirror doesn't lie. And the woman in it, she finally understands that peace isn't earned through planning. It's earned through truth. Even when it arrives too late.